if you really want to be like Jesus, you have to flip some tables.
I'm not obeying my thirst. I'm redirecting my thirst.
Think about David has had a son push him off the throne.
Immediately we start thinking, what are those things that our students are going after? What is it that they're hungry for?
I'm not directing the thirst inwardly. I'm directing the thirst towards him.
The difference between even my generation, maybe y'all's generation, is that, they just want answers.
We normally are not at our best when we're in our darkest place.
This might be one of the lowest moments in David's entire life.
We're starting to see students that are just bold, that aren't scared. I think this new generation isn't scared to stand out.
Why is my life out of order? Why am I not satisfied? Why am I still thirsty? Why am I hungry? What are you chasing?
We grew up in a generation where the commandments were pressed on us, but not the joy and the love of Jesus.
What is going on, Post-Sunday podcasters? I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to episode 22. We're excited to be with you guys here today. We're flying by this entire year in the Psalms. I'm your host, Pastor Johnny Sierra. As you can see, I'm with our legend, our lead pastor. You get him in the same camera shot as me. This is a little bit different.
Fastest intro I got in 4 seasons.
I can't.
I had to take a camera getting both of us in the same shot.
They're looking at me and you, so they're wondering why is Pastor Tim on this shot with you right now.
You usually fly solo, but we changed that today.
Usually it's a solo intro here, but I got my man next to me because we got two special people with us here today. And if you follow with us at Genesis Church Orlando, we're in East Orlando. We had an incredible youth student takeover yesterday, Sunday morning. I believe there's a link on our Instagram page, right? If you're watching live, that you can click and check it out. Do it after this pod, obviously, but check it out. We had just tremendous word, tremendous worship, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of those details, but Psalm 63 in particular is where we're landing on today. And we want to put a little bit more skin on that psalm and talk a little bit more about it. But without further ado, I want to introduce you guys. For those that have been in the pod, you know these individuals. We got to my right, your left, the infamous, the one and only Pastor Will Marmol. What's up, man?
Morning. What's going on,
Man.
man? It's good to be in here with you guys.
Let's go. He leads our student ministry, middle school ministry, and doing tremendous. Shout out to all the middle schoolers. They we'll talk a little bit, but they came to play, man, this past week. I'm really excited about that. And then to my left, your right, we got the one and only Mr. Cobe Grandstaff. What's up, bro?
Yo, what's up? Really good to be on here.
Let's go. Kobe is always asking me, yo, when you gonna have me on?
That's because I was your first original podcast guest.
Yes.
Way back in the other room. And we had just got new podcast equipment.
Yep.
And Dad said, don't mess with any of it. And then 30 minutes later, we were doing our first ever podcast for some reason. So
yeah.
And that's why we shut it down.
And that's right.
And started the Post-Sunday podcast.
If you are true, diehard from the beginning, you know this pod began. If you're watching us live or even later on, later on, you'll probably have the answer already. But if you're live, what was the name of this podcast before the Post-Sunday podcast?
Asterisk. I was not on that one. So let's just make sure that as we remember back in the day, that podcast was not this podcast.
It's not, but
it was a prequel to how we launched the Post-Sunday podcast. It was how you got your feet wet.
That's right. Yeah.
And I saw your producing skills.
You were very intrigued.
And I was like, we can do this.
God can
and
work.
now we're check this out. We are close to the halfway mark. When you say that, of season 4.
That's crazy.
Like we're 6 months in today.
And then it'll be 5.
21 episodes, 52 weeks.
Wow.
We are at the halfway point of
Yeah.
season 4.
Incredible.
So yeah, go back to your old days, but remember the good ones that we got now.
I don't forget. I remember how it all began. And Cobe, thank you for reminding me about that,
What's
man.
up, creatives?
So I'll leave that in the chats.
This is not.
I'll leave that in the chats for you guys. If you know what the name of the original podcast is, leave it in the comments below. That you guys have a little bit time to think. But anyways, we are in Psalms 63. If you guys got your Bibles, your YouVersion Bible app, pop that open with us. We're going to be in there today. And thank you for those that are tuning in live. We go live on Instagram and X every Monday at 10:30 roughly. If we don't have 15 other people.
Trying to get them on.
We had 3 last week, 4 this week, might have 5 next week.
No, we ain't got
We
enough
gonna figure it
microphones
out.
and cameras. We have run out of space today, especially with
figure it
6'4" Kobe in the room.
Oh, man, I know.
we are
dude.
packed in here.
I was nervous.
Let's get it. This is why you haven't had me on the podcast.
He's taking up too much room. Oh, man. But, yes, we're going to be at Psalms 63. Man, when I was reading this verse, I read it for the last, I would say, two weeks because just of situationally where we were and how we had to adjust with our big rush camp that we had this past week. We'll talk some details on that, too. So I sat with this for a little while. You know what it made me think about? You know, as the main theme of Psalm 63 is kind of, people know it as thirsting for the Lord. I don't know if you guys remember in 94, Sprite came out with an ad called Obey Your Thirst.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
And it just made me like, I was intrigued because I grew up with that commercial. And, you know, obviously as a young person, you interpret it the way that you do. But I was curious to see what it really entailed and what was their motive behind that. And it really, their focus was to really, for the person that is going to consume their beverage or the main message is obey the need, right? Obey the ambition, like go after it, seek it, let it be what drives you. And it was like, man, you know what? And they ended up being very successful with that. And I didn't know recently in 2004, they actually re-released the slogan. And then they had Jalen Hurts in 2005 kind of become a main person behind that. And so with all that said, man, it made me just kind of think like in that era, it was very, for every young person, it was like obey your desires, like lean into it, go after it, seek it. Here, David, in a similar fashion, is saying, you know, I'm not obeying my thirst. I'm redirecting my thirst, and I'm sending it. I'm taking it to someone, not within myself. And that is kind of the central theme that I really leaned on with this scripture is that I'm not directing the thirst inwardly. I'm directing the thirst towards him. And that's what David's doing. This is one of those chapters that you get kind of a full spectrum of what it is to begin the day and how it is to end the day. And I like that. And I want to talk a little bit about that in detail. But Will, you two got the chance to bring an incredible word on Psalm 63. You guys collabed, obviously, different thoughts, different things. What sat with you in Psalm 63 that really hit home for you when it came to getting this message going and just talking through it?
You know, we coming off such a high week at Rush Camp. You know, this generation of students that we have right now, they're thirsty, they're hungry. Unlike other generations that we've seen in the past, but they're after it. It's the what. And you open up this psalm, and David automatically, like you said, is just redirecting his thirst. You know, immediately we start thinking, what are those things that our students are going after? What is it that they're hungry for? And we are seeing a revival with this generation. They're hungry. They're going after the things of God. And immediately, Kobe and I sat down, and we had lists of things. I mean, we could have gone on for 2 hours easy sharing about, how this psalm sits so perfectly and fits with this generation of students. But it's redirecting, like you said.
That's good.
It's redirecting that thirst over and just pointing it over to God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, when we talk about this is a different generation, I feel like, than even my generation of students. This is a generation where they get their answers rapidly, and they get answers anytime they ask, and they're constantly seeking after answers. And when it comes to Jesus, that's kind of the shift that we're seeing with them, and they're chasing, and they're trying to cling on to God's word as much as possible, because it is true and it is real in their life, and they're starting to see that. And I think the difference between even my generation, maybe y'all's generation, is that they just want answers, and so they are going as fast as possible. They're going as hard as possible to grab those answers and chase those answers. And I think that's why we're seeing, like Will said, revivals, because these students, man, they're just hungry. They're hungry, and they're constantly chasing after God's word.
True.
And it's just it's a great different.
Yeah, I think coming out of COVID, you started seeing studies that commitment to Jesus was at an all-time low. Like coming out of COVID, it dipped like 30-year low. And I think all of us sat around during COVID and we realized God is sifting the church, and he's getting rid of the unnecessary, the fluff. And if there's ever a time to awaken to the fact that the whole world can shut down like that, it opens your eyes and your ears. And there was a young generation, I think, looking and listening. And just recently, I had saved just in my own files. Relevant Magazine had done a study that a commitment to Jesus in this generation is at a 10-year high. Like it is just rapidly changed. And, when you see what happened at camp, but you see the other articles and then the news, and you watch these guys do their thing, you see the students in our church. Yesterday for us, we encourage people, to always go back and see our sermons. This podcast is in conjunction with that, but can also be autonomous from that, because there's a discipleship piece. And when there's some really great things in the Psalm today that all of us need to hear that we wouldn't have seen before. But I was telling Will earlier, I said, the beauty of it is for a lot of our students, it looked like it was just a recap of camp. But to every adult I talked to, there was a bigger picture that God is moving in the lives of middle school and high school students, and not just moving in their life. They are grabbing the baton and they are running with it. And it was energizing, and it was convicting. I had a woman come to me, just tears rolling down her face, wrote me a 2-page letter yesterday that I received Jesus when I was in middle school. She's now, in her late 60s at camp. And everything I saw today took me back to that moment when God changed my life, and to see him changing the lives of these students. And it is infectious in our church. Just has me thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life that I still have that God has given me? I had people saying, man, I want to be a part of our student ministry. I had people saying, man, just to know that kids matter is a big deal. And so we have this psalm in front of us today, and it speaks volumes to the next generation, but it should be speaking to all of us as we look into it today.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1 year from the time that one of our Ignite partners, right, gave their life to Jesus because of a camp experience from a young person.
Yeah.
And so and look at it's transcended. I think it's been a year.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So for those that are looking for context, our Ignite Outdoor main piece that we do through sports and arts, older gentleman in his 70s watching online live last year, listened to the testimonies of students and heard a middle school girl talk about trusting Jesus. And he said, if she can do that, why can't I?
Wow.
about 6 days later, I was in Maine baptizing him on his property in the river.
That's
And
great.
in full circle, you guys can speak into this. Yesterday, I think one of the greater stories wasn't about students. It was about a gentleman named Luis who came as a security guard to camp, and he watched God move in this next generation. And he stepped into the waters of baptism at the ocean on that final morning, and he called all of them to it. It was a powerful thing.
Yeah, Luis was a security guard, and we told the story yesterday, but he came in thinking he was just going to be a security guard, and he didn't know at the end of it that God was going to change his life through students' lives. Bro, Luis he had a hard job. He had 10th graders, or no, all of our high schoolers on the 10th floor, and he was the security guard on the night shift. And I would walk outside, and I'd be like, why do we have people outside in the hallways at 3 a.m.? Why are students sleeping on the floor in the hallway? And it was because Luis was pouring into them, and they were doing the same back to Luis. And then Friday morning when we did beach baptisms for this camp, he was out in the water, and I said, yo, come on. And he looks back and just grabs all these students. He's like, this is part of my story. They helped me just like I love them, and I want this to be forever part of my spiritual walk. And I think it's just like you said, it's a testament to just this new generation. I think, we're starting to see students that are just bold, that aren't scared. I think this new generation isn't scared to stand out, where culture is pushing things where like you need to stand up for what you believe in. For us as Christians and seeing them walk, like they're taking that same mentality and saying, yeah, all right, we're going to stand up for what we believe in, and we believe in this, and you're going to see it through our everyday walk and our worship. And it's just a beautiful thing to see.
They're not pumping the brakes.
Yeah.
And, to connect the dots with, the story in Maine and what you said about obeying our thirst, these students are doing just that. And God's giving a lot of people in our church front row seats to everything. And Luis is just an example of that. He went there with a plan, and man, he fell right into God's plan for his life.
Yeah,
Crazy. Before we jump into the verse, I think the backdrop to this psalm, when you hear it, so for everyone that's with us today live and those that'll be listening, you need to know the backdrop to this psalm. And as you said, reading it last week, just preparing for the pod, even though you guys had yesterday at church, I was intrigued with the fact that this might be one of the lowest moments in David's entire life when he writes this psalm. You could probably parallel it with Psalm 51. He's repenting of his sin, but he loses the son that he has conceived in that affair with Bathsheba. But this psalm isn't just he's in the wilderness of Judah. It's the reason why he's in the wilderness of Judah. His son, Absalom, has, in his family tree, this is just what takes place, killed his half-brother because his half-brother at one point raped their sister Tamar. And somewhere along the way, Absalom was never really embraced maybe by David, even though you could say that was warranted. And he creates a coup, and he pretty much pushes his dad off the throne. And now his dad is running for his life from his own son. And this is why he's in the wilderness in this moment. So one writer said, in one of his lowest moments ever, David writes one of the most amazing psalms found in all the psalms. So like for anybody that's about to open this psalm with us, just think about that. Think about David has had a son push him off the throne, and he's been on the run from King Saul for most of his life. Now he's on the run from his very son. Yet as a dad, if you go back to 2 Samuel 15 and 16, even though there's a battle going on, David tells his men, don't kill my son. Because there's that father-son love, even though his son is doing this to him.
Wow.
Eventually he does get killed by David's commander of the army. You have to read those stories, 2 Samuel 15, 16. I think it's 13 through 19 is the whole story. But that's the backdrop. So David just isn't in the wilderness. He's been pushed out by his own blood. And he begins this psalm, Will.
It's wild. we normally are not at our best when we're in our darkest place. We're not at our best when we are in a world of in a realm of uncertainty. And here's David, like you just mentioned, running. I mean, who knows what's going through his heart, through his mind, and he just delivers these 11, sentences, verses, that just catches us and puts us in a place where we always need to be. And it just takes you, takes you back for a second. Go, man, like what are we really doing here? Just gives you perspective.
Yeah, I think about some of the most intimate relationships you can have. These are the very people that David is always fleeing from in some way, shape, or form. We've talked about for a while now Saul and how much he loved him, and here he is fleeing from him, right? We talk about now his son Absalom, how much he loves him, and now he's fleeing from him. Here are the most deepest relationships of your life, and you're sitting here, and in one season of your life, you love them deeply, and the next season of your life, you're running from them to save your life. Like, what a roller coaster of a life, right? For many of us, our deepest pain with a sibling or spouse or son and daughter will be an argument or whatnot. Here is him running from the very person that he brought to this world for his life. Like, just think about that. Like, that is intense. An intense scene that's happening right there. But
Or as you said, you have Saul's his father-in-law.
yeah,
Don't forget that little teeny piece. And now his son. This is family.
yeah.
So for those listening and watching that have brokenness in your home, or there's distance in the relationship between you and a child. I was reading this past week. This will just set the stage, and you can jump into the psalm, but I do want to see this. I was taken back by this. Listen to this report. A majority of Gen Z has gone what's called no contact with a friend or family member.
It's funny. I was reading
A new survey finds that 60% of Gen Z has completely cut off contact with a loved one within the last year. 6 out of 10. It's now called no contact. I'm not having any contact with mom and dad, a brother or sister, a grandparent, but this is the phase they're entering into.
Yeah.
And David's battling this. They're chasing me down, but this is my son. How do I respond to this? He's coming after me. He wants my throne. How do I handle this as a dad? How do I handle this as a son-in-law? So we don't put ourselves in their shoes, but this is why we say real people, real place, real time.
Yes.
Get in the real story and then see what he writes out of it. And he writes this, and Cobe and Will chime in. He says, know this, in the midst of this, another key piece real quick, the Ark of the Covenant does not go with him. It stays. David makes the decision to keep it in the city. So now the presence, as they know it, of God is not with them either. They want to bring it with them, but he says, keep it in the city. So now there's a distance in that. There's a distance from your father-in-law. There's a distance from your son. And there's a distance, as people would think, from the presence of God. Yet he begins, "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you, and my soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Right? Will, yesterday you were talking about just Little League and water and thirsting for it.
Listen, when I read that, my mind went there, back into the fields over in DR when I was, just 12, 13 years, not 12, 13 years old, but in my high school years. And when you go thirsty, things get different. They get weird, because you will do just about anything for that one cup of ice or that one cold drink. And I remember, 12, 13 guys in the same position just wanting that. And when that person comes around with just a bit of juice, you're going to fight for it. Because you desire that so much. I cannot imagine David. I mean, where it says that there was no water, you're putting yourself in a place of desperation, understanding that only one thing will satisfy that. But yeah, that's just that context that you put there, being away from what we they consider God's presence, being away. You're now in a place that you believe you're alone. You're running for your life. You're wrestling with these emotions. Your mind's probably just clogged with a bunch of different thoughts. How do you function? I don't know. Personally, as in my human nature, I don't know. Only God can possibly walk you through that moment, and you gotta believe with everything you have that David understood that he was not alone, that God had him, but yet he went there, and he is just laying himself out here, saying, "This is where I'm at."
Yeah, Kobe, you talked about yesterday this next generation thirsting for the wrong things.
Yeah.
What David talks about thirsting for God, but we have a generation that we're celebrating that some are thirsting for God, but many of their friends are thirsting for those wrong things.
Yeah, I think, we live in a world today where like I said yesterday, the culture is just pushing just constant things that give them these dopamine hits right away. And they're saying like, hey, if you don't get the right followers, if you don't get the likes, you have no value in yourself. Or if you don't look a certain way, or you feel this certain way, then you're worthless. And so people are constantly trying to beat that. And I think that's what we were talking about this week when we were studying Psalm 63, is just like students are so afraid to just, be vulnerable, but also to lose that power. And, as student leaders, we're here to try to teach them, like, the only power that you need to lean on is God's power. And I think of David in this wilderness moment. And like you guys said, this is the lowest of lows. And he's laying it all out. And we've had students do the same thing. I was sitting in conversation last week, and, this kid, he's crying. And I'm talking to him, he's talking about his own father, similar to this situation, his own father. He's an atheist, and the kid I'm talking to, he's the only Christian in his family. And every time he reads his Bible, every time he'll go to church, his dad will make fun of him and he'll attack his faith.
Wow.
And I sit back, and that is the lowest of moments. Like, if I was to think about you doing that to me, and I love you so much, like, and for this kid, he's in a wilderness moment at camp, and he's saying, you know what, I have nothing. I'm the only one standing on this, but the only thing I can seek after that just continues to fill my cup up is God's living water. And I think about that in just all these students' lives. They're chasing after the wrong things, but we're starting to finally see that if they can just get that taste and of that water, the living water, it would change your life.
The crazy part is that they'll stop at nothing to go after what's going to satisfy their thirst.
Yes.
They'll stop at nothing, and we see it. We hear about it. They're posting it. They're sharing it. I mean, they're living it out and unashamed. And then you sit here and go, but that's temporary, and that cannot satisfy your soul.
Yeah.
But they will go all out. So we're trying to redirect that over to God. Like, hey, just don't chase after this. You'll continue to be thirsty. Jesus said that to the woman at the well.
Yep.
That is that living water. But we talk about that thirst. Like, come on. Like, what are we really thirsty for, and why?
That's good, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
You got something?
I do, but I'll leave you. No, go for it.
Well, I was just thinking, as Will said that, it just when my kids, and I have Kendall now at home, 13, Kobe and Caden are out, but they always get upset. Like, we'll get into a series, and I love the series now, like, that have brought back just one episode a week, and they would hate it, right? Because they want to binge the whole series from start to finish right away. And like, I'm like, no, I want to savor it. Like, I don't want it to be done. I want it to last a season, a springtime. My daughter, Kendall, we just watched the 50-year of Survivor, right? And it's just one episode a week. You have to keep waiting. But the anticipation of it made it so much more enjoyable to sit down. But these kids today, they drink from a fire hydrant. I can start a show on Saturday morning, and I can end the whole series by Saturday evening. And they just drink it all in fast, and then it's gone, right? Now I've got to get to the next thing, the next series, the next moment. And there's no longer this savoring. There's no longer this patience. There's no longer this longing and enjoying the process of things. It just comes so fast, as he said, in a dopamine hit.
And they want to bring that into a relationship with God.
Right.
And they think that that's how everything functions. I can binge God. I can have him in his entirety in one session,
Yep.
in a week of rush camp, right?
Yes.
And so that's where it takes sustainability, teaching, discipling, and showing them how to maintain this walk and
Yeah.
continue to keep quenching those thirsty moments of life, because you're always going to have thirst, but it's where you are getting it from, right? And that is where the young people have to build rhythms that allow them to go to the well that's appropriate in their life, the well of Christ, the well of Jesus, and get what they need to keep them going. And this is a daily walk, right? This is not I'm quenching the thirst from last Thursday, hoping it sustains me for this coming Sunday, right? Or even the weekly Sunday. The Sunday that I received this past Sunday is going to keep me sustained for next week,
Yep.
right? That doesn't work that way. You
Yeah.
gotta keep going to the well.
I think it also, like you said, they're getting things that they want so much and so fast, and they're getting answers, and they don't like waiting. Just like you said about TV shows, where it starts to lose its value. We're seeing students. I think this is the hardest thing with our student ministry, and what we're trying to teach them is, it is a journey, like you said. It's not a destination. But we have students in this younger generation who are like, I'll get my answers at rush camp, and then I'll feel differently just for that dopamine hit of 2 to 3 weeks. And then, I'm back to my old ways because I got to find something to replace that. That thing is done. And that's what we're trying to teach students. It's a journey. Like, you have to take a step, day by day, step by step, because it's like a best friend.
Yeah.
You can't just become a best friend for a week and then, walk away from that relationship because they're not feeding you what you thought from that relationship. It's a day by day process that you continue to grow in.
Even David.
Yeah.
David is in a position of unfamiliarity, right? Everything's taken away from him. I'm in a wilderness position again. What do I have that keeps me linked with God, right? That's the danger of a lot of young people. It's like you got familiarity and you got something that you can hold on to, right? But what happens the moment that you're positioned in a place of unfamiliarity? And David here is put in that position, and we get to see how he approaches this position, a place of uncertainty, a place that he never thought he would be in. Here, this is his approach. Oh God, my God. This is personal language now. Right? This is me and you. This is someone that has experienced God on a personal level many years back, and it seems to me like he's remembering those moments that he was running, right? The moments in the past that someone else was out to slaughter him. I remember, my God, right? Personal. And so, man, there's a lot to take from this, because when you see his life from years past and see it now, the language that he has, it's of someone that knows what it is to encounter pain from the person that means the most to you, a family member, right? Someone that is deep in relationship with you.
Will, you're not just a pastor of students, you're a dad, and Johnny, we know this. You said a moment ago, just the daily discipline. Students don't understand that yet, right? David will say, verse 5, my soul will be satisfied as with fat and rich food. My mouth will praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you upon my bed and meditate on you in the watches of the night. There's two pieces there. For you have been my help, and in the shadow of your wings I will sing for joy. David, as you said, is remembering, and this connects us even back to last week, the watches of the night, right? This is what PJ had spoken about. This was the last episode of this pod, was waking up even in the middle of the night and going to God in a discipline. A young student came to me yesterday, a middle school student, said, Pastor Tim, I just have one question. I feel like God is just routine in my life. How can I change that? And I told them, don't.
Wow.
And you saw her eyes light up, and I said, don't. She said, why? I said, because that's exactly what you want. God should be routine in your life daily. the problem is you have routines for everything else.
Wow.
And you guys said yesterday, pretty much, and rephrase it when you get there, but what you rehearse shapes who you become.
Yes.
So your daily routine, the things you rehearse, is what you become. And I wanted her to know that, like, God needs to be routinely in your life. That dopamine hit of camp doesn't last. That, as you guys said, was not the destination. It was the preparation. Now you're off the mountaintop. For some of you, you're down in the valley of shadow of death already.
Yeah, a day in.
Right?
Day in.
Within a day in.
Seriously.
And now you've got to do what David's doing right now. You've got to, even in the middle of the night, wake up and know God is there.
You know, and we talked about it. What do you think of when you know, in that moment when you're going to bed? What's on your mind when you're just trying to relax and calm your mind? And these students, you said it, a day in, and they're already like in a valley. And we try to redirect their attention, their hearts, their thoughts to, hey, what was that posture? Your you know, the posture of your heart for worship. When you stay there, you fight for that. No matter what valley you find yourself, you're always going to know that you're holding on to God, that He's holding on to you. Is that we said cling? I don't know how many times yesterday, but you want that desire. You go from that routine to just like, no, I need this. Not in par with the rest of my routines, but that has to be the routine.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you had that moment with that middle schooler. But yeah, you know, that you lose sight of that moment that you experienced at Rush at camp. Why can't you stay on that high? Like, that's a choice.
Sure. I had this note written down here, and it's perfect to what we're saying. Desperation works because it awakens memory. When you don't have anything to sit on in the desperate moments of life, you're done. You being in routine and in a rhythm of life builds a foundation for you that when desperate times come, you can lay and sit on. If there's anything else, my house may be torn down from the storms of life, but there's a foundation that I've built over time with God that I can still rest upon. Man, when crisis hits, we remember what actually sustains us. Right? When I got nothing else left. And that's David saying, I got nothing. I've been kicked out of my own house. But God, you are my God.
I'm just, when you said that, that's just a thought, not just a ponder, to really like grab and put your head around. My son kicked me out of my own house. Like, how does that work? Like, Cobe, get out of my house.
When you turn 60 years old and I send you to the villages,
You
you're gonna be pondering your own life at that moment.
Send me to the villages.
He said the village. You get a golf cart?
You and Jim can play golf every day.
We said Chad there with you, bro. That's what
Chad's
we're
going
do.
as well. And PJ, you guys are all older than me. Y'all all be there together.
We're gonna have our own cul-de-sac in the villages together in the compound.
Yeah,
But like you think about that because you're like, that's so backwards. Like my kid kicked me out of my house instead of the parent kicking the kid out of their house. But as you were saying that, you know, it just reminded me, and this is really what some people don't want to hear. I just have learned God builds best in the boring. Right? It's because whenever someone's bored, they get creative. You have to. We know this as parents. If we give our kids everything that they want or everything they're just asking and thirsting for, when we say go be bored, all of a sudden they disappear for an hour or two. What are you doing? They've created forts with sheets. They, you know, in the room, they're out in the woods. They're doing something different out in the yard that they don't normally get, that their mind has had to work through. And I was telling someone this past week, you know, someone was asking about Cobe and just all the videography he does. And I said, you know, Michael Marblestone, who was on this podcast about this time last year, my marriage mentor, I said, he said it best. He said when Cobe was in college, God took him to a place where he would be bored. And that was the only way this started, because he was in a dorm room. It was COVID. Their basketball season was shut down. And because they couldn't practice, he took his friends into the gym, his teammates, picked up a video camera and started making highlight reels because they had nothing else to do. And because he was locked in a dorm room during COVID, he started messing around on his computer, learning video editing. He never took a class. It started out of boredom. And if his season was in full swing, if it was going how it was supposed to go, he wouldn't have had time for that stuff.
Wow.
But God knew what he was doing in that moment. And so sometimes we have to embrace the boredom because the world is telling you keep going, keep moving, keep receiving, keep drinking from this fountain and that fountain. And when you've drank all you can out of this cooler, go to the next one.
Facts, bro.
And yet God is working sometimes in the routine and the boring to build the best things we need in our life.
Kobe, come on, man.
Well, yeah, like you said,
That's good.
it was that boredom moment for me where I have two wilderness moments, two wilderness experiences that I can really look back on in my life and say God was really, really, really working in that season of life, in my life, and in that moment. And the boredom, like you said, I went to a school where it was very strict, and some of my faith values weren't the same as some of theirs, and it was constantly headbutting and stuff. And I got to a point where I was by myself. I was gone away from family. I knew no one. At this point, I had no car because my car had broken down off of an oil exchange. And at this point, I was like, God, almost like David, like, God, I'm desperate for just some answers. Just I'm seeking you. I'm trying to cling on to you in this moment. But everything that I think about, it has just gone south to what I originally had thought about when coming in this moment. And it was in that wilderness moment that God had to stop me and say, because you were bored and because you were seeking answers, yeah, you picked up a camera. But then also on the other side in this wilderness moment, when you were thinking about your faith values and stuff, you started to get your own theology about what you actually believe in as well. And I'm doing so many things in your life through this boredom season, through this wilderness season. Just sit back and take a look at it and stop thinking about the next moment. Start really just thinking about what I've provided for you and the outcome of that. And like you said, that's how I picked up a camera. That's how I really got some of my faith beliefs, because I was constantly just thinking about what I didn't like about that and what I didn't like about this. And God worked in my life through that wilderness moment. I've had two big wilderness moments that I can really think on. And that was just one of those moments where God was like, I'm setting you up for the next chapter of your life. You just really have to be present in this moment for me to do that.
That's good.
Then you remember when.
And then
You have to remember. And it's those stones. You go back to those moments. We keep talking about this and reminding students, young and older, even the adults, like, hey, God hasn't been absent in your life. He's been at work.
Yeah.
You've been looking for him. If you seek the good, you're going to find the good. If you seek God, you're going to find God. But when you do and you find yourself in one of the situations in that wilderness moment, remember when.
Yep.
Same God.
Yeah.
Different location, same God.
You did a great job with that for me. When I was in this, this last fall, I got into a moment where, like, what I wanted to do, what did I want to do with my life? Did I really want to walk into full-time ministry? Did I want to give up some videography things? And I was just, again, in this moment of like, God, what is going on? You've brought so many cool things to my doorstep. And I just remember getting a text from you, why I actually went back to where it all started. And you had just reminded me. It was just a reminder of, look at all what God has done since he's brought you out of that boredom, since he's brought you out of that wilderness. And you can't stop forgetting about that. You can't stop reminding yourself about that, because those are the things that keep you going and that keep you, especially in your spiritual walk, especially as spiritual leaders, the things that we have to deal with, like, it can be draining sometimes. But it's the small reminders that you're like, all right, God was with me in that moment. God's moving with me in this moment. And it's the fuel. It's the living water that we taste that keeps us going, that fills us back up.
Let's go. Preach, bro. Pick it up and preach.
Don't play the song.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah. I can't do it.
I love that, man. I love that. Desperation teaches you to remember.
Yep.
Like, it puts you in a position to, like, I got nothing else but what God has done. And that's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't need the next thing. I just need him right now. I need you right now, Lord. And I think about what you were saying, Pastor Tim. It's, it just becomes this like sensory overload. You just, the next obsession, the next thing, the next addiction, the next high stimulant moment, right? Like, just slow down, man. Slow down. Be bored in the presence of God, right? Those are the things that keep you sustained. The things that actually save your life are boring.
Well, you're bored in the gym. No one's in the gym every morning going, "It's the greatest moment of my life." But you're
Unless
there
you're working out.
Time
with
out.
me.
No, John, that's the worst moment. I'd rather go
the
back
worst
in the
moment.
wilderness than work out with Johnny.
But
Send me back.
but the outcome is what keeps you going.
Yeah.
And whether it's in basketball training or, Will's daughters were in dance. I was thinking just this past week watching your girls at camp, and I was thinking, man, they weren't even supposed to be here. They were supposed to be at dance schools, like all those years or whatever, and all the dance academies and the classes and all the recitals and all the things that they did. And you come back to those moments and you look at it and go, the outcome and the rewards and the moments where they achieved things was built in the boredom.
Boredom.
When no one else was around, you kept doing the same things consistently. And that's part of our faith, because look, we can't even watch a movie and not be scrolling on our phone at the same time.
Nice.
So like here I am at 48 going, okay, God, I'm disciplining myself to put my phone over here because I just want to enjoy this movie. Not something else that in the same moment at the same time. Will, you talked about this yesterday because David says, my soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me. There's two pieces to that. First of all, the right hand was the right hand of God was always seen as the power of God. You guys talked about earlier, these kids trying to understand that I have to live in God's power, not my power. But that word cling is really the word cleave.
Yes.
Which we find back in Genesis chapter 1, Genesis chapter 2, that a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. And, when I was reading that and thinking about that, everybody in this room knows Johannes, our German, friend and partner. And I will only say this for the podcast, and I won't take it too far, but because everybody in here knows there's a maturity level to this. His broken interpretation of English, as he was trying to translate this concept to me, was, hey, you know how when a husband comes home and sexually desires his wife, that cling and cleave that I'm looking for, he would say, that's how I want my relationship with God. And I was like, let's change the verbiage there. But he was trying to formulate the words of the way a husband and wife desire each other. And we all understand this aspect. And students are fighting that inner battle, in their life because they're not married. That strong desire and pull is what we are to want with God. I desire to come home and be with God. I desire to wake up and be with God. It is in my routine. And you were talking about that cleave yesterday.
Yeah, I gave him the question and said, what is that you're holding on to more tightly than God? Because we all, if we're going to be honest, at some point in our lives, and maybe we're all being transparent right now as we're actually all talking and listening, we're holding on to something pretty tight.
Yeah.
And you got one hand holding on to something, you got your other hand holding on to something, you got your heart holding on to something, your thoughts are literally just, you're everywhere. But if you're not really focusing on that grip and cleaving on to the presence of the Lord in your life, you got your priorities mixed up, and then you got to take a seat back and go, well, why is my life out of order? Why am I not satisfied? Why am I still thirsty? Why am I hungry? What are you chasing? And why are you holding on to that so tight? You can't hold on to both at the same time with the same strength. It don't work. It's not going to satisfy you.
That's good, man. When you're clinging on to God in your most vulnerable moment, you're discovering that it's just not a position of comfort. It's a position of protection as well. Lord, you're protecting me. And David's declaring this in his life as he speaks of what his enemies, right, his concerns about that. But that is the language. You're my comforter, but you're my protector. And that's what he's declaring.
I was watching, somehow this reel made it onto my social media last night, and I'm seeing these two guys that they're parachuting, and one's like slipping from the other, they were tandem, and he's holding on to this person for their life. And you see them realize, like, I got to let go of everything else that's weighing me down so I can just continue to hold on with lighter weight.
Wow.
And I paused. I'm like, man, that's us. Like, we're trying to hold on to God, but we're not willing to let go of everything else so we can fully, like, grab on. Because if he's that important and is that cling, is that cleave, if that's really what we want to hold on to, everything else has got to go. Like, you lose the grip on that. It's a choice.
Wow.
We have this study that came out that declares that Gen Z, this current generation, younger generation behind us, is now less happy than middle-aged adults for the first time ever. Usually that they would say, I'm having a midlife crisis, and that's a really dark, hard time for adults. That this generation is now less happy than they are. And yet they have more at their fingertips than ever before. And you guys both speak into this because you're in the trenches now. But I will say this. I sit in this seat as a pastor because when I was a student pastor, I began to get so frustrated at what the kids were dealing with and going through. And not at them, at their parents. Because what was happening was parents were passing the baton to me as if I was the one that was responsible to lead and guide their child when I only got them 1 day a week and I only got to speak to them about God's word for about 30 minutes or really less than that because their attention span didn't last that long. So maybe about 20. And I was trying to get parents to understand I cannot undo in 20 minutes what you have allowed them to do the rest of the week in their home. But you're wanting it to be my responsibility or a small group leader's responsibility to get your child back on track. And if we're going to get the next generation to change how they cling to Jesus, it has to be absolutely modeled and a priority in the home. When you make sports more of a priority than Jesus, they learn that. When you make rewards and recitals and competitions more important than Jesus, they learn that. When you model that we just go to church on Sunday, but we don't talk about Jesus the rest of the week in our home, they learn that. And we can't unwrap that in 1 week. That's why the home matters as to how you raise and disciple your children.
Yeah. I think, it makes me think about what one of the speakers said last week. And please correct me if I fumble this, but he said that the generation above you guys, your parents, they lived in a generation where they grew up where it was very strict in the house. And so they grew up learning that. And so that's what they did with you guys and in your generation. And I'm not saying that your generation messed up, but that's why we have a lot of parents who are like, oh, I don't want to put much pressure on my students. I don't know if I need to really do that. I'm going to give them as much space as possible because I didn't like the way that my parents did that to me. And now we're sitting in this new generation, Gen Z, where parents don't want to be too much. They don't want to push something or shove it down their throat. And so now students are just walking around like pretty much just free for all. I'm going to go after whatever I want. I'm going to do whatever I want because I know mom and dad are not going to push back if I mess up. And I think that's where the frustration part, like you said, in student ministry is just like, I'm sitting in stories and I'm like, you're 14 years old. How do you have a fake ID? And how are you getting in the clubs? And how do your parents not know about this? And it's that just the real just reality of, parents are looking for someone else to raise their children spiritually. And that's where the miss is because we can only do so much, like you said, but it starts in the home, and whatever comes out of your home is the outcome of what's actually the root of the problem inside your house.
That behavior is either modeled or enabled. And I say this as a parent, and I say that as a son, because I grew up with strict, loving household where there was boundaries, and I didn't give my parents permission to act as parents in my life. It was their responsibility, and it was my role to embrace that. It blows my mind how many times we have to sit in living rooms when parents say, I need you to come talk to our kids. And when we arrive, we're like, I need the students to leave the room. I need to talk to the parents. because half the time it's actually addressing something that's being carried out, or they're not carrying out as parents. And like, it's been said, we have 30 to 45 minutes tops a week to undo a lot of things, and it's not fair. I mean, we take it, we embrace it, we'll do it as much as we can. But this is my cry, and I know that Cobe stands with me on this one. Help us lock arms with you.
Yeah.
If we cannot lock arms, we lose the right to actually, say, well, it's the church's fault, or it's parenting fault. Like, let's do this together.
Yeah.
Be a Deuteronomy 6 home. And I would tell every parent and person that, and honestly, that's why we started Genesis. I want to talk to the parents now. That was a heartbeat of mine. I've talked to your kids long enough, but I've got to talk to you. Deuteronomy 6 talks about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And we would all say, yeah, that's what we do. But then we fall off on the next part. These commandments I give to you today are to be on your door frames, on your houses. Talk about them when you sit down, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. That concept was a pressing, like they would press an olive oil in a press. Like, I'm going to press this into my home. And we grew up in a generation, Kobe's correct, where the commandments were pressed on us, but not the joy and the love of Jesus. And it's both an obedience to God and his commandments with the love and joy of following Jesus. And people lost that understanding. And now nothing's being pressed. We're afraid that if we press it upon our children, they're going to run in the opposite direction. Yep. Instead of, no, this is what our house is built upon. I'm not pressing it. It's the foundation of all that we do. Train up a child in the way they should go. And when they grow old, they will not depart from it. Doesn't mean I just quote some scripture and it'll just take up residency and someday they'll return. Train up. When you train someone, there's a lot of hours being put into that. When we trained for his college basketball experience, there was practice, and there was late night shooting, and there was in the driveway, and there was weights in the gym, and there was 5 a.m. wake ups where we're dribbling the ball on the sidewalk. There was constant training going on for him to get to that level. Spiritually, there has to be constant training in the home, not just here's all the commandments of God, but as my parents said to me, ministry is not just taught, it's caught. Come with me. Let's go serve. Let's go on a missions trip. Let's negate our family vacation for this year, and let's take our family on a missions experience that will change us. Let's take your money where you want to go to band camp and football camp, and let's go experience Jesus at Rush Camp. It is a constant evolving and changing so that you're training up your children in the way that they should go. You're not just blasting things at them. There's a big difference, and we've got to bring that back for this generation.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I know I'm not a parent, and I know that parenting isn't easy. But sometimes, even like you did in my life, like there was times where you put things down. Like I remember a non-negotiable was there is no basketball tournament during Easter weekend. You can play on Friday, you can play on Saturday, but on Sunday morning, if you make it to the championship, you are not playing. And I remember sitting back like, this is the worst rule in the world. I want to go play basketball. We're in the championship. Why can't I go do this? And then it started to be every Sunday that happened, where you're like, we're setting down, guardrails for your life that we can, change. And I sit back, golly, 6 years later. And I appreciate that, because I understand that, you were setting guardrails in our life, even though if we didn't like it. And I think a lot of parents, like you said, it's that we have a lot of parents that want to be best friends with their kids instead of actually parenting them. And they're scared to hurt their feelings, and they want to give them everything in the world. But sometimes all students want right now in this life is a guardrail for you to set some structure in their life so that they can go back and forth with you about it, but overall, like, they're going to appreciate that because they know that you're trying to help grow them physically, but more importantly, spiritually.
Guardrails are there for a reason, and if you go on the road, you see them all damaged.
That's right.
Because somebody's hitting them, and without them there, the situation won't be worse.
That's really good.
So I've hit a guardrail in the past as a driver. I was grateful it was there. Did I enjoy it in the moment? No, but I'm here talking about it.
Yep.
So as parents, set them up. Just set them. being concerned about feelings is it's another conversation. But when you put those guardrails, like Kobe just mentioned, you can go back and go remember when, and have those moments to see God actually working in your life. So parents, just let's lock arms. Let's do this together.
It's the remembering, like David said.
Yeah. And so here we find David in this wilderness, and many of us as well find ourselves in wilderness moments. But how do we come out of that wilderness? Right? Is the question. Does it take away everything that God is trying to do within it, or does it help us propel us forward to what God is trying to do in our life? Is it a teaching moment? Is it a refining moment? Is it a moment that you're saying, God, even in my darkest hour, you are working, you are moving, you are operating, and I'm going to come out of this season learning that and getting something from you. If it's not just closeness, right? Sometimes we're put in positions to just place us in a spot to stop, to be still, to know that he's God, right? We talked about that weeks ago, right? And sometimes there's lessons that need to be learned, moments that need to be obtained, opportunities that need to be reached, and they can only be in that wilderness season of your life.
Yeah.
When you come out of it, you can then see that God was operating in the middle of that. And David's going to find out that even in this low season of his life, God is still faithful. Why? Because he did it before. He'll do it again. And that is the beauty of the God that we serve, that no season is wasted in God. Whether it's a wilderness season, whether it's a valley season, whether it's a mountaintop season, no season is ever wasted in the presence of God.
Embrace it.
Yeah.
Because of who's with you. Embrace it.
Totally.
Someone just asked a question while we're live here. Any boundaries or foundational habits that you could share for the home that you guys have learned or learned that worked? You know, I will just say this, and I'd rather you guys answer it. I have a 13-year-old, and just yesterday alone, we were battling through some boundaries, and my wife had said it, and I repeated it later. You know, she said, "This is how I feel." And I said, "I want you to hear me clearly right now. I care about your feelings, but I am not parenting you according to your feelings."
Let's go.
We don't do that in this home. I care about your feelings, but we do not parent according to your feelings. And I would say that that's the first trap to get out of. Just because your kid feels a certain way doesn't mean you bend or you break or you just let go, or you're so afraid. We live in a world where a generation has learned, if you offend my feelings, that's not right. And we know that faith is not led by our feelings.
Right.
It involves them. So, you know, for you guys, what boundaries, what things will, Johnny as a dad, Kobe, you've learned, you know, along the way in our home that you would say were big ones?
Listen, Jesus was offensive. So, you know, the gospel's offensive depending on where you're coming from and where you're sitting. So like you said, you know, if you're a parent listening and watching, yeah, you love your students, you love your kids, but you were not given them as a gift to watch over their feelings and harness their feelings. You got to raise them up in the way of, you know, the Lord, and you raise them up in a godly ways. The feelings come after the fact. But if you don't place boundaries, it's never too late to place boundaries.
Yeah.
Never. You know, if I could Jenny and I could write a book on how not to parent, if I'm going to be transparent. Like, did we get it right 100% of the time? No. Did we learn a lot of the things that we should have learned later in our kid's life? Yes. We have a 23-year-old and a 19-year-old. Some of the things we started putting into place and tried putting into place was later on in life, because we didn't have some of those boundaries that we should have. And, you know, it wasn't regarding their feelings. It was just we didn't know any better. We were trying to figure it all that at once. Place them in there. You know, I caught a lot of, there was some resistance at the house when, you know, I started talking to the girls about, you know, FaceTiming guys in the room. Like, that's a no-no. Like, no man should have their eyes in your bedroom. That's your safe space.
Yeah.
Why? well, you don't understand how a guy's mind works. Like we have to just put a boundary there. Why there was a lot of whys, and there was it was give me a legit explanation. You don't understand. You're females,
Right.
and
You don't always get a legit explanation.
no, you don't always. And I don't have to justify it. Like the moment that I have to justify an answer and say, well, because I'm your dad, I've lost authority in that I lost influence in that moment. Titles should not be part of that conversation, but it's experience for me as a man. I'm like, this is why. And of course, I'm not looking for agreement or disagreement. I'm putting that guardrail there because I understand what the outcome could look like.
You go next, but I just want to say this about that. There were moments with Kaden, who's now married. She wouldn't understand the answer as long as I tried to explain it. So I just had to look her in the face and say, I need you to trust me as your dad, that I'm doing the very best I can to protect and guard you until I have to give you away one day. That's it. That's all I can say. You just have to trust that my heart is to protect and guard you as much as I possibly can until I give you to someone else one day. And that's my responsibility before God. So they didn't hear it as just mean. I don't understand. You can't give me an answer. There's just some things you won't understand. You got to trust me as your dad and how much I love you.
That's good. That's good. I mean, I'm in a young season right now. My twins are 12, about to be 13, going on 20.
Welcome to the world.
Woo! And then a 9-year-old. And so a little bit different seasons, but model what you want is a huge one for us, man. Like if I desire my home to be a home that is seeking after Christ, I got to model that. I got to model that firsthand. Why can't my kids look at my life and my wife's life and say, and let that be the first example that comes to their mind as to what it looks like to follow Christ, what it looks like to be respectful, to love. Why can't the home be that first place? And so model what you want. And so when it comes to respect, when it comes to the way we pursue God, we model that as a family. It's not everybody is jumping for joy when we're gonna have devotional time, like, and it is what it is, sometimes I'll be honest, it disappoints me a little bit.
Johnny's got a sermon to preach,
bro. But I gotta practice, bro.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes, Dad. We got 5 minutes.
You told us we'd be here for 10.
I gotta practice. How do you think I get my reps in?
One more time.
I gotta.
They're passing the offering plate during devotions at night at Johnny's.
Johnny's like, we got 3 services on Sunday. We have 3 devotion times tonight. So
how do you think I work on this stuff, man? Yeah. So like we got to model that. And so they're not sometimes the biggest fans. They're not jumping for joy when it comes to devotional time. But you know what? We sit down, we do it. I ask them questions and it's a reflection. And you know what? They will come to me weeks later. And this is a true story. Sage, my youngest, just won a prize because she was able to memorize a lot of the books of the Bible. And so where do you think that comes from, right?
Her mom.
Yes. Toss it over. Yes. Like, and so like, it's like, man, like that's the fruit I'm talking about, but we got to model that at home.
Yeah, that's good.
Talk about your boundaries. Talk about your boundaries. And you're going to learn this. Talk about your boundaries and why they're in place.
100%.
Because you cannot tell your students, hey, these are the boundaries we're setting for you when you're not able to explain the ones you have for yourself.
Facts, bro.
Yeah, I think even like I'm not a parent at all. And I think about parents that are probably watching this and listening to this and listening to what we talked about yesterday. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done in my house? I'm brought back to Jesus walking into the temple. And he's looking around in the temple and he's like, what is going on in my Father's house? This is all just mess. This is garbage. And I think if you really want to be like Jesus, you have to flip some tables in your own life and in your own home. And flipping those tables aren't going to be easy right now to do, but they're needed because they set an example of what it needs to look like. And so in students' lives. If you have a student that you're like, oh my gosh, I've messed up, maybe I need to do this, and maybe flip them, shape their world. I remember there was a season of my life, my senior year. It was a very, very hard year with my mom and my dad. I was doing a lot of things I probably shouldn't have been doing. I was getting with the wrong people, the wrong girls that I probably shouldn't have been with. And I remember I almost, for a period of time, was like, Mom and Dad don't know about some of this stuff. And then when you guys found out, it was that hard precedent of like, oh, we need to shake this up, and we're setting guardrails in your life, and we're flipping these tables.
Yes.
And at first, I hated it. At first, I was like, this sucks. It's my senior year. What are you guys doing with my life? I've been doing this the last couple months, and you didn't even know about it, and this is my new normal. But the moment you did that, you start to take a step back as 6 months go by, a year go by, and you're like, wow, I'm happy they did that. But it takes, being able to do that first, and knowing like there is mess in your house to be able to do.
I'm glad that you said that, because I may have really flipped the real table physically in my house. there have been those moments,
bro.
Here's how I would close this piece, and I would just say this for all those that are listening, and I'm going to say this, and please know that I'm saying it from humility, overwhelming humility. We did our student service yesterday, and I have the joy right now of having my son beside me, but having him share the platform with Will yesterday. My daughter's part of the worship team, my oldest daughter. My youngest is in middle school, and she's doing a little segment.
For you, man.
You just have that moment where you're going, God, when I started this church, my prayer was that I would not lose my family. And now here we are 16 years later, and my whole family is truly part of the fabric of this church. But it's not just mine. I'm watching Will's daughter, Charlotte, just be a phenomenal small group leader this week.
She poured into my daughter.
And Simone taking her gift of photography and capturing moments that will allow us to remember things that went forever. I'm watching Aria and Micah just live it up as sixth graders experience it for the first time. Yeah. And then Sage, who, because you're there, but wants to be there. I joked around. I was like, you're not going to leave her home. And you're like, no, she thinks she's part of it.
You will kill us
right?
if we left her home.
We have the humble privilege of all seeing our kids involved in this. And I was just thinking, like, God, there could be some real hard stories right now. That's not normal. There's a lot more stories of pastors' kids who just run. And God, there has to be something just powerful in what you're doing, not in Genesis. That's prideful, in the homes of the people leading them, that I'm in awe of and I'm thankful for, because boundaries take hard table flipping, right? And I want someone to hear that. That does not mean some people they got abused physically, emotionally, mentally, verbally by their parents. That's a different ballgame. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying some hard table. We battled my oldest with FaceTiming boys, and we were learning cell phones at the time. My youngest doesn't have one at 13. I think she's the only one in her grade. I say this, but because we learned from the other ones, we're not repeating our same mistakes. But, and I don't mind saying this, she would laugh at it now. She kept FaceTiming boys, so I took her door off her hinges and told her, you don't get a door to shut in this bedroom. Well, where am I going to change? In the bathroom. Like you're going to learn to adapt because you broke the rules of the boundaries we put in place. And so, like, legitimately for about 2 weeks, she did not have a door on her bedroom because she kept closing the door and doing something that we had put a boundary in place and was breaking it. There was not oh, I know, I understand. I know your feelings are hurt by what I said. Like, nope, you're going to learn. You're going to learn what we said. And so that table flipping piece, isn't easy. It doesn't mean that you lose your mind, you do something ungodly, but it means you stand your ground and you stand firm, because you know that what you are doing is trying to take your children and lead them to Jesus the best way possible.
Man, it's so good. Man, wow. And listen, I want to reiterate what you guys said to kind of close things out here. Parents that are listening here today, whether in audio or live or on YouTube, listen, please. It is not too late. Yes. It's not too late. It's not too late to put boundaries. It's not too late to model what you want. is not too late. If I could be honest with you, for your children to see the changes that you are trying to make to better your family, it will eventually make the impact that you are wanting. It may not result right away, but it is going to, because they see that you are trying. They see that you care. They see that you want this. They see that you want a better life under the presence of God. And let me tell you, man, God will win no matter what. God will win. And so, we haven't done it in a little while, but I just want to give the audience just some challenges to take with them, some things to do this week, to put some work in, or just reflection time. But read Psalms 63. Let that be a part of your prayer, especially those that pray. And I'm not, it could be at any time, but it's such a good one when it comes to the morning time, right? Because in the morning, right, it's almost like you fasted. You don't have anything in your system. And then here you're saying, my soul thirsts for you, right? Like, it just has this symbolism to it that is just so powerful when you are expressing that. And so name your thirst. Name your thirst. Create a rhythm of remembrance. Embrace the vulnerability in your life, and then trust the protection that is upon you in your life. And so carry those things with you this week. Allow them to help you as you walk through Psalm 63. Man, what a great conversation, guys.
Fantastic.
This was awesome. Appreciate you guys coming and being a part of this. I was really nervous as to how we're going to fit all two of you, four of us in this space.
Make you nervous?
You do, yeah. Kobe makes me nervous.
Maybe this is my.
But we did keep the Latinos on that side.
I see.
Oh,
God. You did it that way, right?
How wrong of you.
Listen.
One day I'll be on y'all side. One day I'll be on y'all side.
We did, right? Yeah.
But you did tell me straight out of camp, your first place to go to is Buc-ee's. That is not.
That is facts.
I'm just saying.
That is facts.
For bulk day. For all the treats you shouldn't be eating.
I had my beaver nuggets. You can't say.
He's getting country. We're getting him there.
For all my Bucky fans, we love you guys. PSP, Post Sunday Podcast, Diamond members, wherever you fall in the spectrum, man, we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, being a part of what we're doing here at the Post Sunday Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit us with a 5-star review to get more opportunities in front of many different people that maybe are wanting to go through the Psalms, or maybe just haven't heard the scriptures at all and want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so we hope that you can do that for us. But we love you and hope to be with you guys next week in our following episode. Until then, grace and peace.